our Congressional, Latino, and Latina champions who are with us today. Quiero agradecerles a nuestros líderes del Congreso su apoyo y liderazgo. I know we're going to hear shortly from a few of them, Senator Menendez in particular, our chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congresswoman Barragan, and a few others, including Congressman Vargas. I just want to say how appreciative we are of their leadership. I also want to express our deep appreciation to Christy Furco and the team at Wells Fargo for their years of strong support for UnidosUS's work, especially on the issue of home ownership, where Wells Fargo is the anchor partner of the initiative we are announcing today. And it's a big one. We are so excited to be announcing the launch of what we believe will be a game-changing initiative for both the Latino community and our country. The Home Ownership Means Equity, or HOME initiative, has perhaps the single most ambitious goal of any UnidosUS effort ever. We are seeking to create 4 million new Latino or Latina homeowners by the year 2030. That's big. Tenemos una meta que es muy ambiciosa, crear las condiciones para que de aquí al año 2030, 4 millones de latinos en Estados Unidos logren convertirse en dueños de su propio hogar. Essentially, through the HOME initiative, we are embarking on a new national movement to advance national and local solutions that will increase economic mobility for Latinos and in turn boost the U.S. economy. That is because we know that the best way to increase economic mobility and build wealth is through home ownership. And our community's potential is enormous. Not only are we the fastest growing population and fastest growing group of workers in this nation, it is estimated that 70% of new homeowners in the next 2 decades will be Hispanic. And there are at least 8 million mortgage-ready Hispanics under the age of 85. But despite those impressive numbers, our goal is not a given. To fulfill this potential and achieve our goal, we need to eliminate the long-standing barriers to wealth and home ownership, including inequitable public policies and business practices that have prevented our community from full access to our financial system and all the ecosystem around home ownership. These barriers are the reason Latinos continue to lag behind other groups in home ownership rates. In short, our movement that we are launching today is about closing gaps and opening up the full opportunity of the Latino community to participate in this economy. But frankly, we cannot do that alone. We need to have partners in business, government, and the nonprofit sector for us to succeed. That is why we are here today with some of our top leaders who have long been advocates for the kinds of policy changes we need, such as ending housing discrimination and predatory lending and expanding access to credit. We need Congress to act on these issues and also to invest in the kind of culturally competent housing counseling that is done by community-based organizations such as our UnidosUS affiliates across the country that have proven to be so successful in turning longtime renters into first-time homebuyers. And we also need business, especially the private sector and financial sector, to step up by investing in our communities across the country and helping them navigate the home ownership process. Finally, we will rely on our nonprofit partners in the field, such as the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, and most especially our network of community-based UnidosUS affiliates. We have worked for decades with these CBOs to help thousands of families become homeowners, and they are some of the most trusted and respected institutions in their areas. They must be a part of the solution. What we have seen in our work is that home ownership goes beyond wealth building. Home ownership means safer communities. It means more stable neighborhoods and vital and prosperous communities. It provides a foundation for children in our families to succeed in school, to have better health outcomes, and to dream big dreams. I know this firsthand. I'll never forget how proud my father was and my mother was when they bought their first house for our family of 9 in my hometown of Kansas City, Kansas. After years of scrimping and sacrifice, it was not the fanciest house, but it meant the world to us because it was ours and it was home. I want that feeling of pride, accomplishment, of safety, a foundation for everyone, including the 66 million Latinos and Latinas who call this country home. And we will do everything in our power at UnidosUS, along with our partners, to make their dreams a reality. Todos entendemos el sueño americano, que es la oportunidad de ser dueño de una propiedad, de un propio hogar, logrando así la seguridad económica de nuestras familias. Esto no tiene precio y es lo que esta iniciativa, este movimiento intenta lograr. I want to thank everyone, and now I would like to introduce one of the most respected and well-known leaders we have in our Latino community. Senator Bob Menendez is a lifelong public service, has been in public service since the age of 19 when he was first elected to office. He's been a long-time champion on housing issues, including by ensuring robust funding for housing counseling, critical support to our community's pursuit of home ownership, and the America dream. He's been at the center of policymaking on too many fronts to mention, but most recently, I want to highlight his leadership along with his support for a stronger economy and bread and butter issues for our Latino and working families, for his advocacy for representation in the economic sector. Most recently, he led a successful effort to nominate the first Hispanic board governor ever in the history of the Federal Reserve, an institution that has enormous influence on the U.S. economy and financial well-being of Americans. Please join me in welcoming our champion, Senator Bob Menendez.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Janet, very much for that gracious introduction. I should just rest my case here and stop. But the issue is too important. And let me say, I can just see that God is with UnidosUS. When the morning started and my staff told me we were having this press conference in the Senate swamp, it's called the swamp for a reason, not because of the politics, but because of the water. I said, oh no, we were going to do that. But look at this. So, smiling down on you and this initiative and my colleagues. I appreciate your leadership on behalf of more than 62 million Latinos who call our country home. I know that my colleague Ben Ray Lujan is going to be joining us. I'm thrilled to be joined by our House colleagues as well, who are leaders in their own rights. I'll get to introduce our chair of the Hispanic caucus when I finish, and I appreciate Christy Furco being here on behalf of the bank to help make some of this initiative a reality. We're here today to support a new initiative led by UnidosUS that aims to create, as Janet said, 4 million new Latino homeowners by the year 2030. That's only 7 short years away. That's right, 4 million by the end of the decade. Larger than any one policy or proposed solution, this initiative is nothing less than a major national movement to transform the economic trajectory of the Latino community in America. And it's appropriately called HOME, which stands for home ownership, means equity. We're standing shoulder to shoulder as we champion ambitious potential and transformative goals. Now, throughout my entire career in public service, I'm not going to now say how many years since Janet said where I started at 19, so I'm not going to let you do the addition, but I can tell you that over my 31 years here in Congress, I've made it my mission to advance the economic prosperity of the Latino community through bull markets and bear markets, through once-in-a-generation challenges like the pandemic. I've worked alongside others to increase the ranks of Latino homeowners. I still remember the dark days of 2008 when we were faced with the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, all because African American and Latino homebuyers were disproportionately targeted for predatory subprime loans. In the economic downturn that came after, I remember fighting on behalf of Black and Latino homeowners who faced larger obstacles to recovery than many of their white neighbors. I pushed the Obama administration to offer principal reduction and other loss mitigation options. I introduced innovative legislation that would help families keep their homes even if they own more on their mortgage than their homes were worth. And finally, I recognize the unique challenges of the recent past as we see 8 consecutive years of Latino home ownership growth tempered by inflation, record high interest rates, and affordability barriers. Ms. Furco, you said it best when you appeared on a virtual panel hosted by the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. You said, quote, "Home ownership is still the largest wealth builder, not only for individuals and families, but for generations." That was your quote. I couldn't agree more. I was raised poor in a tenement in Union City, a shoebox apartment before they became trendy. And I never forget what it was like to rise from those humble beginnings and personally afford my first home in my family. The first apartment was the vehicle which allowed me to rise into the middle class, to pay for my children's college education, and to grasp for a slice of the American dream. When we talk about home ownership, we're talking about that story. It's about providing Latinos with rungs on the ladder to success. It's about affording them the greatest investment they'll probably ever make, the one asset that can tide them over during volatility in the market. And of course, we're talking about forever homes, those intimate sanctuaries where families will come together, memories will be made, sad times will be gone through, and cycles of wealth will be fostered. That's the reason we constantly hear the old saying, "There's no place like home." And with this initiative, we are turbocharging our collective efforts so that more folks in more places can finally say, "Hogar, dulce hogar." How does the Home Initiative seek to do this? By focusing on 5 key areas with proven track records of success. The first is improving readiness, including housing counseling that helps Latinos to afford their first home. 2 years ago, when the American Rescue Plan was signed into law, it included provisions I wrote that set aside nearly $100 million to expand access to housing counseling. It was the right thing to do then. It is the right thing to do now. Housing counseling is an essential tool in the fight to close the racial homeownership gap between Latinos and their fellow Americans. It helps prospective homebuyers make well-informed choices and overcome barriers, which is why every year I push my colleagues to fully fund the Department of Housing and Urban Developments and its housing counseling program. Beyond improving readiness, we also must expand access to mortgage credit. During the COVID pandemic, when home buyers, faced immense obstacles during an unprecedented economic crisis, I introduced legislation that would keep lenders from penalizing borrowers if they inquired about or received mortgage forbearance. I did so because ensuring access to credit is an essential part of fostering home buying and ownership. And it's part and parcel of reaching for the American dream, which is why we must continue to ensure that lending conditions drive home ownership growth for Latino families. The Home Initiative additionally includes measures to increase housing supply and to preserve home ownership, areas that I'm proud to support with what I call my Livable Communities Initiative, a bill that would help incentivize local governments to update their zoning and allow for new affordable housing, particularly near mass transit. We've seen versions of that proposal work in other states like the Bay Area and Salt Lake City to the New York metropolitan area and beyond. And so I think those zoning decisions are very important as well in order to create a new opportunity for housing. Finally, when it comes to preserving home ownership, one of my proudest accomplishments is we successfully pushed the Trump administration to rescind its prohibition on DACA recipients receiving Federal Housing Authority mortgages. Imagine denying hardworking young people the chance to own a home because of their immigration status. It's unconscionable, it's immoral, and it's just downright wrong. And thanks to our efforts, we reversed the discriminatory practice and secured full eligibility. So this is about creating wealth. It's about having a place to call home. The single greatest asset that any American will largely have is their home. To be able to draw upon if they need to educate their children, to draw upon the time of illness, to create intergenerational wealth as that gets handed down to future generations. And the very essence of home, as I said, the ability to nurture your family, to have a refuge, and to meet all of the challenges and glad moments that life brings us. That's what this initiative is all about. That's why it's so important. Así que quiero felicitar a UnidosUS por esta iniciativa, una iniciativa que creará la oportunidad de más de 4 millones de familias latinas en nuestro país en los próximos 7 años poder realizar el sueño de que su casa, ellos son el dueño de su casa. La oportunidad de crear más oportunidades para familias poder buscar un lugar que pueden decir, este es mi casa. La oportunidad de crear más avance económico y tener la habilidad de crear para el futuro generaciones una oportunidad de una economía saludable para nuestras familias. Este es el elemento más significativo para todas nuestras familias americanas que pueden ser el dueño de su casa. Y no hay nada más bonito que de poder ser parte de una iniciativa que va a crear ese sueño ser realizado. And somebody who is a champion in this regard, she has been an extraordinary leader now as the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. So these initiatives are very often at the front burner of her agenda on behalf of the caucus as a whole, and that's Congresswoman Annette Barragan.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Thank you, Senator, for all of your work and for being a champion and for somebody to be able, as a relative to your years of service, somebody I could look to see how to get things done and how to succeed in advocating and advancing for our community. So muchísimas gracias. I want to start by thanking UnidosUS for hosting this press conference today and for all of your work. Not just you, Janet, but your staff, right? We know the staff makes it happen. Thank you all for your work to transform the economic trajectory of Latino families. I'm also proud to stand here with my colleagues, Juan Vargas, of course, Senator Menendez, who is a champion, and to thank them for all the work, the groundwork they have laid. For many Latinos, immigrant families, and first-generation Americans, buying a home is an important step in reaching their version of the American dream. I remember growing up when my mom used to say, "Mija, necesitamos comprar una casa. Es mi casa." And it was all about buying a home. It was the opportunity to come to America, to get an education, but to buy that home. And in our home, Mom's house and our house was the place where our families would come and immigrate and stay. So we had one family in every room, a crowded home, but it was our home, and that home that she still has and lives in today, which, as she says, is the American dream. But for too long, Latinos have faced significant challenges on their journey to home ownership. Many have faced lack of financial literacy to plan for home ownership, or maybe credit, maybe language barriers to services such as down payment assistance programs, limited access to credit for a mortgage, or maybe not understanding the documents. Now, this has contributed to the Latino homeownership rate being just 48.7%. And you compare that to 76.6% of home ownership for white households. That's an inequality, and it's an inequity that we need to fix. And that's one of the reasons I'm very excited about the initiative today. Despite these barriers and rising housing costs and interest rates, Latinos remain resilient. and they continue to purchase homes and increase their home ownership at a record pace. Last year, Latinos added a net total of 349,000 homeowner households, one of the largest single-year gains for Latinos in the last 10 years. This is how badly Latinos want to partake in the American dream. And as the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, I will do all I can to make that dream a reality. Organizations like UnidosUS plays a critical role in making that vision a reality. So thank you again. I welcome and applaud UnidosUS. This is a new national initiative to create 4 million Latino homeowners by 2030. They're focused on improving homeowner readiness, expanding access to credit, and increasing the housing supply will help millions of Latinos. I look forward to our work together to increase Latino homeownership, and I can't wait to see what we accomplish for our community by working together. And one of my colleagues who's been working on this issue day in and day out, who serves on financial services, and whom I turn to often for advice and counsel, is my colleague from California to the south, Congressman Juan Vargas.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a real honor to be here today, and I hope that you don't mind me saying this, but especially with two icons, two heroes in our community, and that is Senator Menendez, who's worked so hard. We appreciate all the work in the Senate. In fact, we know when there's someone up in the Senate for confirmation, we count on him, and he's our champion. And Janet Murguia, who's been working so hard throughout the country, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Really, they've really gained icon status. I hope you don't mind me saying that in our community, but they really have for all their years of hard work. This dynamic and needed program that we talk about today addresses the multifaceted challenges Latinos face when trying to buy a home by advocating for policy reforms to expand home ownership opportunities and provide mortgage-ready Latinos with resources they need to navigate the home buying process. This initiative could not come at a better time. Across the country, affordable and sustainable housing is in great need, but sadly in low supply. In April of 2022, home price appreciation hit a new record high of 20.1%. A lot of Latinos are missing out on that. A lot of people of color are missing out on that. At the same time, interest rates on the average of 30-year fixed average mortgage rates started to climb, reaching 7% in October of 2022, the highest in 20 years. According to the recent data, the U.S. housing market is short 6.5 million homes. We need to build those homes. And I know that Senator and others have initiatives. We in California have ones too that we're starting to try to meet that demand. This particularly impacts Latino households, as they are projected to be the largest group increasing home ownership over the next decade. For example, in 2022, Latinos formed 628,000 new households, the largest single year gain in over a decade, the largest of any demographic group, and more than double that of non-white Hispanic households. And in Congress, we can do more to ensure that Latino families attain the portion of the American dream. And this is the American dream. I think the senator said it well, and so did Ms. Murguia from UnidosUS. Although I hate to upstage anybody, but I'm one of 10 children. And we didn't grow up in a tenement house. I grew up on a chicken farm. And my parents very badly wanted to buy a house. And I remember the first day that we finally got that house. There was no furniture, nothing like that. And my dad came into the living room, laid down on the carpet that was there and said, "We're all staying here tonight." And we did. And we were so proud. My father now has passed away, but my mother still lives in that home. She has put, and my father has put 10 children through college for that house. She's had seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sevenths, and eighths on that house. She's paid them all back, and she's very, very proud of that, and she has a lot of equity in that home. That is still the dream. As a member of the Financial Service Committee, my colleagues and I oversee the nation's housing stock and regulators. Earlier this year, I introduced the Homeownership for Dreamers Act that will ensure that the DACA recipients are not discriminated against, as was told again by the previous administration. when applying for FHA home loans, home loan backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and rural housing home loans. Now I'm working across the aisle with my colleague Tony Gonzalez of Texas to explore bipartisanship, common sense solutions to increasing home ownership for the first-time homebuyers. As you all know, housing is critical for our community. Strong homes produce strong communities. And purchasing a home for many in the first step is generational wealth, as was told. I'm glad to have UnidosUS as a partner in this fight. They have an incredible initiative, this positive impact that Home Initiative will have on the communities across the country. Y quiero dar las gracias a todos los que están aquí, especialmente a UnidosUS, que ha estado trabajando tanto, especialmente también a dos líderes de nuestra comunidad aquí, el senador Menendez, que realmente nosotros hemos contado con él por años y él nunca nos ha dejado, nunca él ha dejado esa lucha. Él siempre ha hecho mucho por nuestra comunidad. Le doy las gracias, muchísimas gracias a usted. Y también a la señora Murguía, que ha trabajado tanto por Unidos, no nomás en viviendas, pero en todo que afecta a los latinos. Y le doy gracias tanto por su liderazgo. And today we're very, very proud, and I'm very, very proud that we have Wells Fargo as a partnership. Wells Fargo is here today, and I have the honor to introduce Christy Furco, the Senior Executive Vice President, Head of Diversity Segments and Inclusion, and she will talk to us a little bit about how the bank will participate with this initiative. And again, I thank you so much for stepping forward. We wish other banks would, and we're watching them. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Senators Betacon, Menendez, Vargas, and of course, Janet. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you all today. And I love kind of looking back at all the smiling faces and everybody who is here, because I think we all share the same passion, and that is a passion for equity, a passion for doing what's right in homeownership. And I think it's so appropriate that June, being Homeownership Month, is the month that we have chosen to be here for this momentous occasion and announcement. I'm thrilled that when I joined Wells Fargo 3 years ago as the CEO of the home lending business, when I interviewed for the job, and it was in the middle of COVID, and I remember everyone asking, why did I want this job? Why did I want to head up mortgage at Wells Fargo? And my answer was very simple. I want to put more Black and brown people in homes. I recognized the inequities that existed for far too long in this country for people that looked like us. And we wanted a better and different future for those. And I believed that somewhere like at Wells Fargo, the largest bank lender in the country, that being at the helm there, I could help make a difference. And I was thrilled that when I made that bold pronouncement about why I wanted to join, everyone, for our CEO, Charlie Scharf on down, said, that's great, come do this here. Because Wells Fargo has a long legacy of being the top lender to Black and brown families in our country. And it is something that, while we've been the largest lender, we know there's an opportunity to do so much more. And the time is right to be able to do more. You heard the numbers from my panelists here today talking about how important those are. And I just want to underscore a couple of the numbers that they said, which I think are so important. The one that keeps me up at night, even though I've moved on to be the head of diverse segments, the one that keeps me up at night is the homeownership gap. The gap for our Latino families to white, non-Hispanic, is some 25 points. That's an injustice that we have to fix. The second, which is exciting, is 8 consecutive years of Latino homeownership growth. And that's an opportunity that even in this economy, as we look to move forward, that we can do more. And that's what this home ownership and means equity, that's what this initiative is about. But the final one, which is the most exciting one, really is the one about 4 million new Latino homeowners by 2030. And it's only 7 years away, so we have to get to work. And I am thrilled that we get to work with Janet Murguia and UnidosUS. I'm thrilled that this partnership that Wells Fargo has endured with Janet and her team for decades now, that we get to stand alongside of them as an anchor partner, stand alongside so many of you, stand alongside the senators that we have here to really lean in to the solutions that need to happen now and urgently, to really be able to drive a level of inclusion and equity in homeownership. I'm so thrilled that Senator Menendez called out my quote, because I say it all the time. The home is the single largest purchase that many people will ever make. And home is something visceral. You heard the stories here. I have my own story. Home means something to all of us. It means independence. It means safety. It means community. And it means stronger communities for our country and our nation. And so we're thrilled at Wells Fargo to come alongside UnidosUS for this very important initiative. We're excited to get to work. We're excited to work with whoever, and I hope many of you in this audience will join us in this fight to ensure that 4 million new Latino homeowners get created by not only 2030, but then once we hit that number, we do more and do more and do more until that homeownership rate is on par with the white non-Hispanic rate. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for including Wells Fargo, and let's get to work.
Thank you. So I think we're prepared. I know the senators and the members have to get to some other appointments, but if there is a question or two, I know we may have some media present. And I also wanted to acknowledge, it's been referenced before about the team. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Lot Diaz, who's been building this homeownership work for many, many years, and our home counseling, but also Laura Arce, who's our senior vice president for the home initiative. So just want to make sure you know there's a lot more people behind this. But I had a question here. Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that economic issues, say like inflation, are it's a factor in Latinos struggling to own a home?
Yeah, I welcome others. Yes, I think inflation, interest rates, all of these combined to create a landscape that we know is unpredictable in many ways. And while we've seen the growth of the Latino homeowners despite some of that, that's why I said it's not a given that we have a lot of Latinos and Latinas who are home ownership ready. But we really have realized that in addition to preparing individuals and preparing for whatever economic headwinds come our way, we've got to make systemic changes. We've got to make sure that all the related sectors that are part of accessing home ownership, those barriers are broken down and new opportunities are increased. But I welcome others.
Can I join you
please.
just in that question?
Please.
So look, inflation hurts everyone, and we are working to reduce it. But the reality is this gap in home ownership, even when we had record low interest rates and a booming economy, that 25-point gap existed. This just didn't happen now because of inflation. It happened because there are structural barriers to the access to the mortgages. There's redlining still in our country. That's also a reality. There's credit issues that unjustly prohibit families from being able to move forward. And of course the readiness issues to be able to make a strong application. So all of these things existed pre the question of inflation. I don't want anybody to believe that inflation is the reason why we don't have the home ownership we should.
Any other questions? One more?
One of the things in the press release that you discussed here is modernizing lending rules.
Modernizing.
Lending rules to as a increase pathways to homeownership. Can you elaborate a little bit on what the ideas are that UNIDOS wants to see implemented in that regard?
Yeah, well, I know we can get you some more specifics on that. I don't have those. I don't know if Laura Arce wants to take that one, but look, it's part of the challenges are not just from policy standpoint. Some of them are regulatory, and we're working with financial institutions every day to make sure that all the